Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
All right, let's go. We got it.
What's going on, world? Looks a little different on our end over here. I guess we should tell people right off the bat. We're trying out a new studio today. We got a couple cool friends. Of course, you know Julio and Maria in the space. They've been overly gracious in letting us come by today and try it out so that we could have a little bit better audio for all of you guys at home checking in today. Ed, how we doing, bro? You having a good week?
Yeah, we heard we heard feedback from the folks that we're trying to share the journey with you, and some of you on some of the platforms were having trouble hearing us, and the audio and visual quality wasn't meeting our expectations. Folks weren't seeing it the way they wanted. So yeah, this is super cool. Love this. Shout out to the Atlas team and their continuous support for us and our business. We're so appreciative of friends in the space. Love the digs.
I know, it's cool.
Let's see if this can become a regular thing for us. This would be really fun.
Absolutely. It's also nice to be in a room that's like properly temperature controlled. Like if you've been to our office before, you know that it gets freezing cold in our conference room compared to every other room in the office. So when you or I are in there for an hour every Friday, it's sometimes I'm wearing long sleeves. Sometimes I've got a tank top on. So it's just nice to be in a place that's nice and collected.
For sure. And you're you're sensitive to temperatures.
I am a little bit more than the average folk.
That's it. But you're also,
Kevin James likes to say, I have no problem sweating peeling an orange. So.
That's right. Well, I mean, you're kind of a big dude too, so that just comes with the territory, I think.
Right. What do you think, before we kind of jump into our own world, what did you think of the meetup last night with Jarrett and Trey, and then Wes and Jordan, of course? Like, that was the largest turnout I think I've seen at an event in 2 years. Maybe longer.
Since COVID. Yeah, for sure. Since COVID, this is like the most impressive thing I think we've seen, which is awesome, man.
Yeah, shout out to those guys.
Yeah. So we got to go to the CLTRAI meetup hosted by Jarrett and Trey, who are good friends of ours. They had us at the meetup last month.
I think it was last
month.
Maybe 2 months ago.
Maybe 2 months ago. And then they brought our friends, Jordan and Wes, who are running an awesome off-market business. They're not primarily wholesaling. They're on off-market business, but they're doing kind of upscale rehabs.
Yeah, luxury flips
in the $1 million plus range. So certainly love what they're doing in their business. I think, no one's doing that better than them.
Agreed.
Or they're doing it as well as the best.
I was about to say, them and the boys at Dapper.
Yeah, like Dapper's doing a great job. Mason was out there last night too.
I know. And he even said hello in front of a large group of people, not trying to say anything, but I know he's a guy that kind of operates behind the radar by choice, which I love. And it was just cool to, see him get the recognition that of course he deserves.
Of course. So there's guys who are doing a lot in that space, which is fun. The meetup had a great turnout. We're in the business of trying to create communities and bring people together that are all trying to do the same thing. So to see that many people out there, if we're just being real, it kind of warmed my heart. I loved it. I like being with our people. That's where I want to be. Loved every part of it. We were at a meetup the night before. New Western put on a great event.
Great event at the new Sycamore Brewing, which was a pretty awesome space as well. I mean, it's really cool to just see not only, of course, all the people in the space, but there are just so many amazing places to go in the city and always meet someone new. And, I happen to know everyone who was in the management staff over at Sycamore because of my days at Del Frisco's. I used to work with them all, but it's just so cool that you go to these events, you network with different people, and then all these people from different circles that don't intersect outside of the world can come together. It was cool. I love that event as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, we saw at the event, let's get our days right, Wednesday evening, people who we don't see at other events.
There was, and this is probably more of a direct insult to me, but I didn't recognize anyone at the New Western event outside of their agents and maybe one or two other people. It was a brand new landscape for me, which one tells me we need to be out more at other events that maybe we don't favor as frequently.
Yeah.
But two, it's just the the market of investors and people who are interested in real estate investing is it's ever growing.
That's right.
And it's almost hard to keep up.
It's fun. It's dynamic. One of our attorneys, the Sperry Law Firm, was one of the hosts of the meetup as well. So that was great to see them and their team were out there in force.
The whole team was out there. It was great to see.
Found out that they're expanding to the Raleigh market.
I know.
I think that's public information, but I think they're working to do that. So
hopefully. Let's just put it that way. Disclaimer. Sorry if not.
If I'm breaking the news, then I'm breaking the news. But it'll be good. If you're in if you're in those markets and looking to build on a relationship that's really valuable, the Sperry Law Firm is one that we've really appreciated. They've done great work for us here in Charlotte, and we look forward to them moving and opening additional offices and expanding their level of support.
Absolutely. And now we'll move off from that, just in case that they haven't done it yet. We don't want it to be overemphasized, but of course, happy, very, very, very so much happy for them. Office hours was also pretty good yesterday.
Yeah.
Maybe, continuing to talk about sub twos has just made people think that we're going to talk about sub twos every office hours. So
we don't get to talk about it. I wish we could. I wish that was the whole thing.
Hey, if you can we have something like 24 office hours left in the year. So, or maybe a few less than that. But if you guys want to bring us 24 sub 2 deals, we will talk about it in office hours every week.
How many soapboxes do you think I'll step in on out of the 24 that are left? How many soapboxes am I going to get?
It'll just be one soapbox, but it'll just be getting continuously higher. So you'll probably need a ladder, sooner or later to get onto your soapbox.
I love it, bro.
But what did we talk about at office hours yesterday? For all the people that waded through this long introduction, let's start giving them some value.
Yeah. So the actual subject matter that we discussed yesterday was properly underwriting a rental.
Yep.
And I mean, at the end of the day, the punchline is really kind of two things. First, the income a unit generates is not the money you put in your pocket, shockingly, right? Yes. And so to properly get to a figure that we call net operating income, which is effectively the money you have after your net operating expenses.
Very scientific there.
Yeah, right. Is you take your income and you take out your fixed expenses. You talked about this at length at office hours, but it's broadly speaking, taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, and vacancy.
The things that you will deal with no matter what. It's not once in a blue moon. You will deal with vacancy, or at least you should plan for it. You're always going to have maintenance. You're always going to have management. Uncle Sam, make sure you always got those taxes, and you should never own a house without insurance. So yeah, seems pretty simple.
Seems like
but it. But I think what we know, and we're probably victim of ourselves even on occasion, is sometimes the numbers are a little tight, and you try and play puppeteer and move those numbers around to make it work. And not saying that you can't be successful that way, because you can, but it's not a recipe for continued sustained success. It's not consistent. You'll have ups, you'll have downs. And what I think we talked about more than anything is you need to have the resiliency and the structure to say no to a deal just as willing as you are to say yes.
That's
probably
right.
More so willing than you're to say yes.
That's right. So that was the first part of the conversation, was you have income, you take out expenses, and you get to net operating income.
Yep.
Some people will stop the analysis right there.
To be honest, I think a lot of people stop the analysis just after gross rent minus debt, which is not the right way to do it.
Not the right way to do it.
But you're right. So net operating income, it's like, oh, wow, well, it's kicking me $800 a month. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm moving my way towards financial freedom. But as you are, serving up here, why is that usually a problem?
Yeah. And so you have income minus expenses, and you get to a number called net operating income in the industry.
Yep.
What some people forget is net operating income itself, that value, has two jobs, right? And often, I think the jobs are reversed how we think about it, right? So net operating income has two jobs to get to the point. It has to cover your debt service, and it has to pay you a profit.
So mortgage and money in your bank account.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where those two buckets they go into. And the way we think about it is, we know that the money that needs to come into our bank account is fixed, right?
So cash flow, we don't budge on.
It's got to be pegged, right? And so then the question is, whatever's left over, let's say there was $800 in net operating income, and we wanted to put in our pocket $300 a month from this asset for operating it. Well, that means there's $500 left for debt expense. So when we give an offer, it's reflective of how much can this property afford in debt. In this case, it would be the $500. So by default, what can we offer the seller for that $500 a month? How much money can we buy to give to the seller at $500 a month?
Yeah. And to try and take that to like Sesame Street level for a second, it's really just saying that if I have $800 of net operating income and I want to make $300 a month, that means that my mortgage can't be $1 over $500.
Right.
And to the next point of that discussion, whatever that person wants from a purchase price perspective for their house, if the mortgage for that purchase price is more than $500, I can't do the deal.
That's right.
And what happens is, well, people will say, well, I'm still making 250 or I'm still making 200.
Or I'll get a rent increase in a year. I can push rents in 18 months.
And I don't disagree with their logic when the vacuum of everything happening is set up properly from the beginning. Like you're right. You'll be able to do a rent increase. You won't have to worry about maintenance as much if you buy a turnkey rental. But a turnkey rental means you're paying more for it, which means your debt expense is going to be higher, which means you're probably cash flowing less. So there's the inverse effect of, if I want a cash flow, I need to be able to buy a house at a discount that needs some work, but I also have to be able to do some work to be able to improve that over time. And that's where sacrificing cash flow, you can lose something.
Right. And I think, we spent a lot of time talking on scenarios and kind of what about this, what about that, which is fine. That's the purpose of office hours. It's definitely meant to be a space where we're talking out what we're working on. So I think we were able to kind of make clear at least what our point of view about this is, and that if we'll be disciplined about underwriting and then make the offers that are reflective of that, our business is going to grow in a much more productive way.
That's right. And if that means that if I have to underwrite 50 or 100 more properties and I have to put out 50 more offers to get the one that fits, that's the discipline I have to have. It's the law of numbers, and you don't want to break your numbers because you're worried about potentially missing out on a so-so deal. So, it's funny, when we were talking about this in office hours, the topic itself didn't go as long of a discussion as many of our other topics do. And I think the reason for that is this is pretty black and white, cut and dry.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of nuance to how you underwrite a property to determine whether or not it will cash flow. And what I think we continue to say is, it's not knowing how to do it. It's actually putting it into action and sticking to it. So it's not something to over harp on, but it's something that you should make an absolute in your business.
Was it Jerry Green who was talking about the guardrails?
Yes.
Yeah. So when we were at our mastermind, Jerry Green came in, who's a guy in the space. You guys
very well coaching, acquisition, sales guy.
Yep. So processes, operations, the whole thing. So Jerry came and shared some ideas with our mastermind, and this one stood out to me when he said, one of the steps that businesses will often miss when they're scaling is what he calls guardrails. And it's, once you get the ability to generate opportunities and you've figured that part of the machine out, a lot of people just want to jump right to the scale. Let's do them all. And a step that gets missed there is, what are we not going to do? What are we not going to do that's not going to serve the businesses effectively, and set guardrails to those deals? And I think what you and I are trying to say, and what we've deployed in our business, is to say, not every deal is a deal we need to do. And we only want to do the deals that serve the business the best with the limited time and capital resources that we have. Let's focus on the ones that are going to generate the most.
But to add one more level to that, it's not just those two things, but it's also doing deals in the space that we have expertise in, right? So we get asked all the time, why don't you do commercial? Oh, you guys don't do land? And it's one of these things where it's like, if I was gifted a present with a nice bow on it right in front of me and it was a commercial deal, yeah, I'd probably find out a way to do it. But focusing our marketing dollars, focusing our time on something that isn't our bread and butter isn't going to serve the business the best right now. And being able to put the blinders on, the guardrails, like thinking about the horses that, you know, can't see the horse next to them. It's like, yeah, you are making a ton of money doing commercial. You're making a ton of money doing land. Do I realize that I'm probably passing up opportunities to make money? Yes. But then when you also think about the fact that, you know, the world is full of abundance and everything out there is an opportunity, you got to stay in a lane.
That's it. You know, my brother Taylor has a saying that I really appreciate in that respect, and it's, you drove by more opportunity today than you could monetize in a lifetime, right? Which is just, there's an abundance of we could go out right now. Like, there's a guy downstairs selling hot dogs on a corner, and he's probably doing relatively well. So we could choose to open a hot dog stand if we wanted, but that may not play to our core abilities and strengths and the resources that we have available to us. So staying disciplined is certainly part of what we need to do. I'd like you to share a little bit. I was kind of in and out of office hours yesterday. It was a little hectic for us operationally. So maybe we can share a little bit more of what we were working through, what people were asking. But before we do that, I do want to remind folks in the stream, you guys are welcome to submit questions. We can take them live as we're live now. Of course, we'll be watching and monitoring these channels as well after the fact, so people could definitely share comments later. But yeah, Malachi was talking about the same quote, that you pass by more opportunities today than you could monetize in a lifetime. And I know that's an idea he understands well as well. So
it's a little overwhelming when you think about it like that, but at the same time, it really means that you know, there's a deal everywhere. So maybe you can't monetize the first 10, but what about the 11th? What about
sorry.
the 1000th?
Sorry to jump back in, but you
No,
made such a, I like being at office hours too, because I get to like watch us both talk about our business, and it's instructive to me. But you made such a great point about, we are not alchemists. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So this is not a CLT buyers thing. Like, I took this from Jordan Belfort. Whatever your opinions may be about the Wolf of Wall Street, he clearly was successful in his business, but ethical decisions, maybe not, but he knows sales. And he was talking about how you don't want to be an alchemist. And alchemist isn't really a profession that's around today. I mean, it's a chemist, but back in the day, it was people that would take, you know, elements and convert it into something else like gold or copper or silver, whatever. And it seemed unimaginable. It wasn't possible. And when you correlate that to sales, it's one of the things where I'm not going to try and take these no's, these people that have no interest, and turn them into a yes. It's like, I would much rather sift through all the no's, trying to find those pieces of gold that have already been created. So I'm sifting for the yeses rather than trying to turn no's into yeses. And when you do that, it takes a lot of pressure off of your plate about being the absolute best salesperson from a convincing basis, and it transitions you to the best salesperson from a relationship and from a efficiency of time basis, which everyone struggles with. Just because I conceptually understand this doesn't mean that I don't fall into that rut as well, but by being aware of it, maybe it pulls you back to earth a little bit faster.
I think it's interesting because we get asked often, Ed, Michael, what would you say to a seller when insert XYZ? And for me and you, our little alarm bells go off, because we're like, that's an indication you're just talking to the wrong person, at least at the wrong time, right? That may be someone you need to speak with, but convincing them or, coerce them, or like, how can I help them understand? That's not really the role. Our role is to educate on our value proposition, and then sift for who's ready for that value proposition today, and put on the back burner the folks who need a little bit warming up.
You know, we were talking about this yesterday after office hours, but we've both recently watched this documentary on the pyramids of Saqqara.
You're going to bring that in? I love this.
Okay. And it correlates, because what's going on there is they found Saqqara, which is like potentially this graveyard of kings back in Egypt and all this kind of stuff. But when they got there, the first thing that they did is not, this is the one thing that we know, we're going to dig as deep as humanly possible. They can't do that because there's fear of rupturing or breaking or destroying other things in the area. So the first thing that they do is they canvass the land completely, digging small trenches at a time, trying to gauge where do I actually decide to dig deep. So when you are pitching your product, whether no matter what it is in sales, you want to take the same approach initially. You want to scan the canvas, you want to take the entire area and find out where it's worth digging rather than just continuously digging in the first place that you found and not realizing what other abundance may be around you.
Love that. Love that. And if you want the punchline, watch the Netflix documentary, but they do reach gold, right? They find some really
in
awesome
multiple places.
They
which
find
is
some
the
really
point.
awesome stuff.
That's right.
So, but yeah, any other things from office hours, conversations that stand out to you? Or is that kind of...
Well, naturally we have the same topics come up in office hours pretty frequently, which is perfect, but a lot of it is about lead generation. A lot of it is about properly handling questions from sellers and answering them in an effective and professional way. But one of the topics that probably got exacerbated a little bit, and I don't mean that negatively, but it was really just openly discussed, is not setting up the proper expectations initially on the phone. So, like, going through an entire phone call and getting all of this information that you think you need. And then when you tell them you're going to call them back to move forward on to the next steps, you realize that there's 6 or 7 other things that you forgot to ask. And trying to bring it back to the initial conversation kills rapport. And the discussion was going very much back and forth over how do I ask the types of questions that keep people on the phone while also being able to ask difficult questions or personal important questions about someone's background.
You made a good point about how do you ask sensitive questions, and there are things that we need to know in certain scenarios about houses that could come across disrespectful, or it could come across insulting. That's a better word. Insulting to someone. An example: we are looking at a property that has a bedroom that has been basically set up for their dogs, right? And they literally refer to it as "quote unquote" the dog room. And if we were to look on like the drywall in that room,
Super dirty.
It's dirty,
Yeah.
right?
It's a dog's room.
So as you would expect, so that introduces some things that we need to understand about the home. So you want to talk about that for a second?
Well, sure. And I think even people that are just listening now can already imagine what is some of the potential damage, what are some of the potential things that could be prevalent in a house that has animals that kind of roam the space, for lack of a better term. People can choose how the animals live in the house all they want. I know people that don't allow them on the couch. I know people that keep them outside. I know people that tuck them in under the covers at night, right? It's all over the place.
And in fairness, we're both dog people, and our dogs live in the house.
Exactly.
Like nothing.
And I
nothing
have
more
outdoor dogs that I've chosen to have live indoors, so I pay for this all the time. But I'll even admit, in my house, like, my house doesn't smell great all the time, and it's because I've got dogs, like, right? So when I was talking to them, how do you bring up, does your house smell? Right? That's a very disrespectful question to ask. But if I need to know that I need to fumigate the house, or if I need to know that I need to bring in completely fresh carpet everywhere, potentially, do an air out, get steamers, like the whole thing, this is a cost question. So I have to understand it.
Yeah.
And it's not just this one example, but for every question, you just have to label what it could be before you say it.
And so what does that sound like in an actual question form?
So,
because you've studied this at great length, right? Like, you've spent a lot of time to understand some of these approaches. And so it comes off very, very natural for you. And I've heard you describe it for others in ways that are really beneficial. But what is labeling? And then how would you frame that in a question?
Sure. So labeling in and of itself is bringing the topic or the assumption of feeling or action to the front of the conversation. It's basically saying, hey, it really sounds to me like this is going on or that is going on. And what happens is it allows them to say, hey, this guy understands where I'm coming from. He's listening to me. Yes, rapport is being built. Okay. That's why we label. But in this specific example, I just flat out told her before I asked this question, I was like, hey, I'm going to ask a question that might come off a little bit disrespectful or, you know, a little, I may be insinuating something. I don't mean it like this, but I just have to ask. Is it fair to say that because of the dogs kind of like having that room and kind of roaming all over the house, is it fair to say that there's probably some smell in the house and I might need to get this fumigated? And after I said that, she paused on the phone for like 10 seconds and then was like, yeah, it probably needs to be done. And she said it like that,
Yeah.
which meant it was embarrassing for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like it did take some gusto to admit that. But because I framed it or labeled it as I understand how you might feel before I even ask this question, I want you to understand that I know it might come across a little bit disrespectful, but I just don't mean it that way.
Right.
And that incites a much more friendly response rather than just insulting someone about the state of their house.
And, you know, I'm lucky to have a business partner who's really good at that, right? So you've not only done that like when you're on the phone, but even our sales team is learning to employ these techniques. And I think our sellers receive or interpret the empathy of our business as a result of those efforts. I think it's really effective.
I appreciate that. So. But it's not, you know, it's really not that hard to do. And yeah, saying coming from someone who does this all the time and has a lot of experience in sales, but it's not a technique as much of a I understand what you might feel.
Yeah.
I may be wrong, right? Which is why we label it up front, which is like, I may be wrong here, but this might come across a little bit disrespectful. So I just want to be transparent with you. I'm not trying to, I don't mean anything by this. It just, I have to know. And then you ask your question. And I would say instead of maybe, you might not get it 10 out of 10 times, but if you get it 8 out of 10 times, that's pretty successful.
Yeah. A couple of announcements we got to share at office hours. There's actually a lot going on in our world.
It is.
We're traveling next week. So we actually don't even get to do our office hour session next week.
Are we going to be doing this next week?
No, we don't get to. Yeah, no power hour next week. No office hour. That's all lined out. So we won't get to do those things. But in exchange for that, we're going to get to be with our mastermind community.
That's right.
And spending time and kind of sharpening steel there. Super excited about that. We enjoy spending time with these people both as peers and mentors and friends and all those things. But we got to also announce the launch of Queen City Transaction Coordination,
QCTC.
So we that's an opportunity for us to use the processes and the Rolodex and the skills and all of the things that we have developed in our business over the last number of years and allow others to take advantage of those resources in their business to make sure transactions happen more effectively than they haven't. The response from the community has been really great, so that's exciting. We actually already have 2 files in-house.
Pretty awesome.
After launching it yesterday. So that is super exciting. I'm excited to launch it first, right? But I'm really excited about the benefit that others are going to receive with us being able to kind of look over their shoulder. Like this is a way to bring the expertise that CLT Buyers has, both you and I, from just, what are the ways to do this? What are the levers? Christine with actual operational excellence, right? And like making sure that this is all happening in the right way. So I'm just excited about it. This is something really fun for us.
I'm excited about it too. And I think part of the reason that it is exciting is one of the things you and I have to focus on, not all the time, but a good amount of the time, is flashy object syndrome, not just in terms of processes for this business, but ooh, there's another business opportunity. Oh, we could do this. Oh, we could start that. Oh, this is a project that might be beneficial to the community. And over the last 3 years, we've probably turned down, and I don't want to say turned down like it was offered to us, but we've thought about doing and decided not to do probably 5 or 6 different businesses.
Yeah.
And the fact that
ironically, sorry to interrupt
no,
you, but
go
I
ahead.
was going to say my number would have been like 16 or 20 because you know like how my mind
Well, I
works.
was about to say, we're talking about the 5 or 6 that we've actually discussed together and
Yeah.
hashed out, not the 20 a piece that's like popped into our brain at a day. But this is the first one that kind of organically came up as like we don't need to take away all of our time from CLT buyers for this one to be stood up in parallel. And that made it a much easier decision to kind of get started on this. And the fact that we can tap into resources from one company to help the other is definitely like one of the most exciting parts for me, outside of course, helping the guys in the space who just want to dominate by getting contracts and not worrying about all the minutia of talking to attorneys, talking to, you know, appraisers and everything in between.
I think we like the reason QCTC came so natural is we have heard from so many people about how they'll get their marketing rolling and then they'll finally get a fish on the line, the contract, right? And then they take all their attention off marketing so they can go and make sure this all happens the way it's supposed to. And we've just heard that enough where we're just going, dude, this is a no-brainer. Let's put our systems to work. Let's leverage our resources. Let's leverage our relationships, and let's support the community more completely. And I'm super excited about it.
Absolutely. I think the one, just giving people a thought of like worrying about potential downside here, or the risk is like, even if you choose to do a file with us, which of course we would love, you're not taking advantage of our services if you're not, after handing the file to us, going back out and getting another one. Like if you're just doing this to take the work off of your plate and not going to go and double down to get the next one, so you're capitalizing on 2 or 3 times as many deals, you're actually just taking the easy way out of learning the full process. And that is something that, like, don't get me wrong, if you want to send us a file and pay us money to take care of the service for you, we're happy to do that. But you're going to be cutting yourself short. And that's not something that I want to be attracting. So the people who are going to be the true benefits of this service are the people that say, hey, I don't want to worry about the stuff that takes a long time, because I want to be focusing on income generating activities that are going to make more money for the business, not just put more time on my plate.
Bingo. Nothing to add. Can't say that any better. I think you're exactly on point with that point of view and how we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
So just super excited about it, bro. But I do want to make one point about QCTC. So QCTC has its own social media handles. So go follow Queen City TC on Instagram as an example. We'd love to have the follow. It's got a website, queencitytc.com. It's very, very robust website. If you guys go to the website, you'll see what I mean there.
Common thread in our world.
But you and I don't even have a logo for Queen City Transaction Coordination yet.
We don't have a logo. We got our bank account set up when?
Like 2 days ago?
2 days ago. We've gotten how many processes actually put down in paper with the QCTC model? Not a lot. Not a lot. Them.
Yeah.
Probably less than 50%. But
and we is a very Christine
has 100%, but we probably have less than 50. But the point being is, we don't have 100% of the answers and everything done.
That's it.
Right. Before we start pitching the service.
Bingo. And this is so important to us in our approach, and what we're trying to teach folks is, do we know every minutia detail of every part of what we're going to do? No.
Like, the one screw in the back of the engine that no one knows about that falls out. Can we predict that today?
No.
So should we just not do it?
Bingo. So it's like, do we trust our team's ability to troubleshoot and solve problems as they arise? 100%. And so because of that, you and I can go out and make commitments to other investors and say, hey, our team is going to help your team perform more effectively, and we're certain of that. There's no question about that. That's easy.
But on top of it, what you're telling them is, this is a brand new business that we're putting up. There's going to be a little bit of, an initial scar tissue as we get the processes oiled out, but we're going to treat this in such a way that you're just getting updates. You don't have to do anything other than trust us to get it done and stay in open communication.
Bingo. So love it. We're excited about it.
It's going to be great.
So that's all those things. We were also at office hours, we shared our enthusiasm. Sounds like we're going to be able to be a sponsor for Directed IRA's event in October.
Is that finalized?
I'm
close to?
Very close enough where we can talk about it here.
Perfect.
So it sounds like we're going to be able to be a sponsor for that event. So for any of you who are in the Carolinas and are looking for opportunities to connect with people who have capital to place, want to learn more about your own retirement accounts, want to understand alternative assets. Let me give you one example. I think we may have talked about this, but one of the alternative investment strategies was buying NFT weapons in a game that you rent to other users of the game to generate income. And so what if you did that in your self-directed Roth IRA account? Then any money you generate,
I think you just gave Gen Z's dream away.
I know.
Wait a minute.
I'm going to rent
I can invest
NFT
in
weapons.
my future by renting NFT weapons in Call of Duty out to other people. I mean, theoretically, you can.
And so, those are the types of strategies. Not that are that's obviously more
maybe not the one that we would endorse. But
it's obviously a French strategy, but I just mean to say there are so many possibilities that even if quote unquote real estate is our thing, that doesn't mean you have an interest in crypto. Yep. And so you routinely look at that and evaluate that as a boundary spanning opportunity, and it's just looking at it and saying, yeah, it may not be my main thing, but is it something that's going to add value to us in the long run, or something that I find interesting? Yeah, why not take a risk?
Absolutely.
So I don't know if we've gotten any questions in the community. It looks like a pretty quiet day out there. You guys aren't hitting us with anything. So if you have any challenges you guys are facing in your business and would love a point of view, we'd love to jump in and help. Otherwise, we haven't talked much about transactionally where we are in the business. So maybe we can talk about that for a minute.
Of course.
So this week has been pretty productive. What does it kind of look like operationally for us?
Well, gotten a property under contract for a wholesale Novation style deal. So that's exciting because we've known about Novations for a while, and we've been able to pitch Novation style deals where maybe there's a little bit more creative than true Novation, but this is going to be our probably true first Novation deal. We've also secured some funding on a couple projects we're going to be keeping, and have been going back with some of our, favorite lenders and identifying best rates, LTC requirements, all that kind of stuff. So we've been really busy and pushing the business forward from a midterm to long-term capital pop perspective. And now that we've been able to get the system a little bit more oiled and a little bit more stable, it allows you and I to spend some time going after other opportunities, helping other people in the space that may be struggling on their deals. And, of course, we believe in the power of you give enough. Usually something in the world happens beneficially for you as well.
For sure.
But it's been a really busy week. We've been all over the place. We've probably spent less time in the office together than in office together this week. But looking back at it, definitely a positive week for us.
Good week. Yeah. Lots of moving parts. I think we got capital commitments over $600,000 this week.
That sounds cool.
So
it sounds much cooler than when you're doing it in the moment. And
in the moment,
I just need it. What can I give you? How can I solve your problem? If you're able to lend some funds, and it's oh, that was a big week.
Yeah. So lots of moving parts there. I think as we walk out of the week, just for those who didn't see it, we sent out I think the last piece of that is we're looking at for a commitment for $60,000 on a second position note for a property we're doing in Belmont. Is it Belmont City?
It is Belmont.
So in Belmont. So if you guys didn't see that email and you're interested in those types of opportunities, definitely hit us in the DMs. and we'll happy to discuss if that's the opportunity that you'd be interested in. Obviously, all of those are secured by real estate, so happy to kind of talk about that approach. But I think that'll be the last piece, like to that total 600,000 raise on a couple of projects. So that's pretty fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
A lot of work.
Casually talking about it, but it is a lot of work.
A lot of work, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of relationship capital, right? So some of the folks who are lending us these funds, like one of the lenders I spoke with this week, this will be her first time lending to us once that project gets online. So we're spending time talking about how that relationship works and how
we actually have 2 first-time lenders this week.
That's true.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And those most of those lenders come from someone who's done a deal with us, and then they're talking about their experience, and then one of their friends says, "Hey, I've got some money that needs to go to work," that type of thing. So, just lots of gives and takes there. We have our property in Kannapolis that is selling retail. That should close next week, so we've done a little bit of work on that. Private lenders funded that exclusively, and so having conversations with those private lenders and preparing payoff statements and all of that has happened this week.
Can we stop there for a second?
Of course.
You're talking about, oh my goodness, we've raised $600,000 in lender capital over the last week or so, which is true. But when people hear that, it's like, well, how are you returning that capital? Like, what are you like? You're just going to take $600,000 and then what? Like, how do they get it back? How do you manage all that? That's so much money. Like, what is just for the people that maybe don't understand the full process? Like, can you explain in very simple terms, like the 5 stages of like the lending relationship, and then how that lender is secured to make sure that even though we are being given all this capital, it's not at risk, or the risk is substantially lowered?
I think focusing on the property we're selling at retail now. So we've got a lender who placed $100,000 for that property. So let's step back to like how that happened and then what's happening now.
Yep.
So we are in real estate what are described as operators. So we are generating opportunities and then actively executing on those opportunities. So we're operators in the space. So when we're talking to other people, we generate something that others may not be able to generate as effectively on their own, which are these different opportunities, right? So we spend a lot of time talking to other individuals and we say something like, if I were to find the right opportunity that fit a profile of what you're looking for and fit the capital that you have available, would that be something that you would be interested in learning about? When those people say yes, we'll add them to some distribution lists in our office, and they get to review these opportunities when we send them out. So one of the opportunities was to purchase a home in Kannapolis. So we talked to, there were a couple of lenders on this one, but we'll just focus on one of them. So we talked to one of our lenders and we said, hey, we need some amount of capital. And she said, hey, I have $100,000 I can put towards this one. Okay, that'll get us a lion's share. What do you say? What is the?
That's correct.
Okay, the lion's share of the deal. And so we had her come in and we discussed with her, hey, how long could we have this capital placed? What type of return are you looking for during the time period that it's placed? So we had some discussions there and made some agreements. And then she wires the funds to our attorney's office. We sign some documents. The primary documents there are a promissory note and a deed of trust. Those documents get recorded, and then the funds are released for us to buy the property. On this specific property, our plan originally, when we spoke with that private lender, was we were going to flip the property.
Yep.
Because the rehab on this project became too much of a lift for us, you and I had to make a decision where we pumped the brakes and we put on the market as is to sell. So that was a bit of an adjustment. So once that's under contract, we call the lender and say, hey, we were originally planning to do XYZ and you were going to get your money back in this time period. And now that plan has changed to this and you're going to get your money back on this date because it's under contract. We know that.
That's right.
Right. So we say to them, hey, what would the interest be through that closing date? We're going to pay you off this amount. And they sign what's called a payoff statement. We work with our attorneys often to generate those to make sure that they meet some requirements. And then once we're paid at the sale, our lenders will be paid according to these payoff statements. And then any of the excess proceeds we'll get to retain.
So. Got it. So full circle, lenders willing to give us 100,000 because current value of property is more than 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that in a fire sale situation, they will still get their money back, most likely. Then we're going to use the money that is given to us to purchase and or improve the property. And then once we sell that property, the funds that they gave us go back to them with the interest payments that we owe them for the time that we borrowed their money. And I think the big thing to keep in mind is when we sign that promissory note in the deed of trust, what that's doing is it's securing their capital to the property. So it's not saying, hey, I'm going to lend Ed and Mike money and they'll pay me back when they pay me back. It's because it's secured to the property. It is a forced payoff when the sale is completed. So it guarantees they get their money back on the time frame that we've spoken of. And I think that is where a lot of maybe lack of information comes into the lending world, which is just like how to properly get the money back to the investor so that they can lend it again on your next project.
That's right. And helping them kind of through some of those processes, I think is what effective capital raisers are able to help them work through those processes. So if it's money that they have in a cash form, or if it's money held by a self-directed IRA, or whatever it happens to be, you're going to have to work through whatever is specific for that process. And I think we've done a good job of that. We could always do better. You and I were talking this week about systems that could help us improve that process. And so yeah, it's a fun time. It's a great time. We're excited about how important our private lenders are. We're thankful for their support in our business and the way that they allow us to be dynamic in a way that's a competitive advantage for us in the market.
That's right.
Wanted to come back to the self-directed IRA event in Raleigh just to make sure that I'm covering the bases here. So Directed IRA is coming to Raleigh, and they're bringing a lot of their national support and talent and vendors and all of the infrastructure to Raleigh to share with all of folks in the Carolinas how to use these tools effectively. So super excited about that. I did want to make sure I mention early bird pricing is through August. I think it's the 5th. So August 5th is early bird pricing. Folks can check the link in our bio for that. It's super affordable. We're certainly excited that they're bringing such expertise into the Carolinas. And if you guys are anywhere within, a 6-hour drive, whatever it takes to get here, these events can be really crucial for the growth of your business. If you remember, 2 years ago, we got to go to down to Florida for a similar event. And I think it's exciting anytime you can get together a collection of this type of talent and discuss the types of things that we're talking about. Your business will be moved substantially ahead for just spending effectively a full day learning and growing and networking.
I think the biggest thing I've learned in the networking space is that you really will make the biggest moves when you're networking with non-real estate people, because everyone in real estate knows how to be an operator. So they're confident in being able to find deals themselves. But the people who are intrigued by real estate but don't have the time, resources, or energy to do it themselves still want to be a part of it. And talking to high net worth people and people that have funds available and retirement accounts or other things to lend, and then being able to put it in real estate where they don't have to worry about operating, it's pretty beneficial.
Yeah. When we were, we got to go out to California a couple month ago now, maybe, and we were in Costa Mesa for a similar event. Being one of the few operators in the room, like, not to over exaggerate it, but we definitely had a lot of attention. A lot of people were interested in what we were doing. We had a lot of people we got to talk to about our experiences, about our stories. We got to tell them the story about how we bought a subject to one time and had to describe a Slayer law to someone, and things like that. So being in that space and being able to raise capital in that way when you're one of the only real estate folks, instead of going to a real estate heavy event, definitely is a unique experience. And for those of you who are on our stream, we strongly encourage you guys to be in the room.
And there are a couple people that we know that do this as well. And what I would say is it's just nice to see that multiple people are using this strategy, because it's, as people like to say, a blue ocean.
Yeah. So you guys have been quiet on stream today. I don't know. Is there?
Are they just worn out from all the meetups this week?
They may be. They certainly may be.
I am.
We've definitely worked hard. We've played hard. We've worked hard this week. I'm really excited about what we've done this week. Again, no office hours next week. No power hour next week.
Nothing with CLT buyers next week.
Yeah, we'll be busy, kind of sharpening our skills. And
but then the next week when we get back, we've got the exchange. You want to talk about that really quick?
Yeah. Where are we at? What are we doing?
Yeah, you want to talk about that really
quick? So, guys, for the exchange, we're going to be at Hop Fly Brewing on
the old unknown brewing right near the stadium on Mint Street.
There you go. Are you gonna do it, or am I gonna do it?
Well, see, you can be the title and I'll be like the subtitle.
Fair.
I'm the secondary headline.
Fair. So we're at Hop Fly Brewing. They have a private room for us. Look, for those of you guys who have been to the exchange, we are keenly aware that it's been standing room only. We love that. Thank you so much for all the support, but we do understand that it needs to be a space that we can more comfortably connect in, that we can learn more effectively together, and that is really important to us. So we've made a change in the business, and we're going to be making sure that you're available for that. I think the AC is going to work more effectively at the new place
Blasting,
too.
I hope, as we've already discussed today.
So yeah, Hot Fly Brewing. Our friend Sam and his team are coming, and they deploy what is described as the co-living method. And it's a way to generate income by renting portions of a home instead of the home at large, but not for a short term, but for a longer period of time. And so it's the co-living method, often referred to locally as communals. Many people have an approach here, and we're just super excited that Sam is going to come and share some ideas. You and I are going to be taking notes as we're in the process of developing potentially our first communal. So yeah, super excited about that. Hot Fly Brewing, 7 to 9 p.m.
Yep, Sam and Ramu, they'll be, I can, to your point, I am going to be fully attentive with notes as well. I think this is an interesting model, and it's one of those that has a lot of little details in it. So it sounds great, but I can anticipate that there's a lot of potential downside that you have to protect. So I'm going to be there fully attentive. We saw him speak in Asheville, and it overtly piqued our interest. And I'm just really excited that the people in the space are going to be able to meet Sam and Ramu and really just kind of be able to rack their brain on anything about this.
How do we work through the logistical challenges of, like, you have, roommates in a space, guests in a space, that whole thing. How do you work through the regulatory requirements? How do you work through the financing? All of these are questions that you and I have had, and we've brought to Sam. And finally we said, all right, Sam, we've got to stop blowing up your text messages. Just come share the whole game plan with us. And we're certainly thankful for him and his
team. There's another example of we've committed to doing this method without knowing 100% of how everything works.
That's right.
But the upside potential is worth us taking that risk.
That's right. So
that's August 10th from 7 to 9 at Hop Fly.
Perfect. August 10th, 7 to 9, Hot Fly. See you guys there. Just so thankful for all of you guys and the continuous support that we have. Shout out again to the Atlas team.
Oh my God, this is awesome.
For letting us use this awesome studio space. We're so thankful. Hopefully the audio and the visual has been better quality for you guys. Leave a comment below. Give us a shout out. Do the hand raise emoji or whatever it is if it's working better for you guys. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have any other points.
I think we're good. I think we covered it all.
Perfect, guys. That is Power Hour for this week. We really appreciate you. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Later, guys. Did you hear that they have like the crowd cheer at the end of that? That was really funny.
No. Are we